ticket type, actual price, and then zip code. All right, so as I mentioned, GeoFlow isn't added to Excel. I've installed that. It shows up as this 3D map icon. I simply click Explore in 3D. That grabs the data and loads it into the X-Velocity engine. This is the same engine that powers Power Pivot, Power View, and is embedded in Excel. Okay, so that gives us the ability to scale up to very large data sizes. As I was mentioning earlier, we can do about 1 million rows right now in our current data form, but because it's in the X-Velocity engine, we can go to hundreds of millions, potentially even billions of rows, depending upon the size of your hardware that you have back in this data set. All right, so now that I'm in GeoFlow, basically it pops a separate window over the spreadsheet, and I can begin to explore this in three-dimensional space. As you can see, this is a 3D globe, and what I want to do is plot my zip code. So I'll go ahead and map it, and what this does is takes that zip code information and sends it off to Bing to do the geocoding. So we can handle pretty much any type of address information that Bing can handle. It could be zip code, street, state, country, things of that nature. So it goes through the process. All right, there you go. Yeah, feel free to applaud at any time. So we have our locations relative to our ticket sales. And you know, one of the first interesting insights is, wow, they sell a lot of tickets outside of just the Seattle area. I mean, the Seattle Art Museum is a nice sized museum, but they have a pretty broad reach. In fact, if I showed you the entire data set, it expands the entire North American area. There's some interesting pockets of activity. All right, so I've got my locations here. Next, I want to start to do a little bit of analysis. What we try to provide is a very fluid way of switching between different views because your brain reacts to them in different ways. So let's go ahead and take a look at a heat map view of that data set. So I can get a little bit better sense of where those tickets are occurring, but it's only showing me the tickets with respect to the location. What I want to do is really understand the magnitude of sales taking place in each one of those zip codes. So let's go ahead and put on the attendance value, and right away I can see there's a hot spot right in the Seattle area. Not too surprising, it is the backyard of the museum, but nonetheless it was kind of interesting to see if there's other pockets of activity in the outlying areas as well. We provide a variety of different themes for people to look at the data, and I've got one theme here which turns on my labeling. We typically turn off the labeling so that it doesn't obscure the actual data that's being shown on the map. So I can see that we got some activity over in the Spokane area, we've got some Vancouver activity, and Seattle. All right, so as I was mentioning, this tool is about both exploration as well as storytelling. And what we mean by storytelling is giving you the actual ability to capture your insights along your journey so that you can replay those back to yourself as well as share those with others. So the first step along here is I want to create a new tour. A tour is basically our way of stringing together these scenes that we found interesting bits of information that I can then package up into a complete whole. So I took my first snapshot there, and then I can continue on my exploration. So what I'd like to do now is zoom in on the Seattle area here. As you can see, it's a very fluid interaction model. Everything updates in real time. We're going against the Bing service, and we're pulling down the various tiles which we stitched together in this 3D environment. All right, so I've got my layout here. The heat map's great for certain things. Sometimes it's not so good for showing distinct areas. So if I want more of a distinct look, I can turn on my bubble chart. You see kind of different areas more predominantly, such as over in the Hood Canal and down south. So I'm going to take another snapshot of this scene. All right, so that's all fine and well. Let me keep zooming in on the Seattle area because I've got this big blob of interesting activity in that particular region. I'm going to tilt the horizon a little bit. One problem with bubbles is that there tends to be a lot of occlusion or clumping of things. So what I'd like to do now is actually show this in a three-dimensional space. So let's go over to my column chart. And as you can see right away, I can see the outliers that take place with respect to this data set. And I can pan around, change my perspective to get a better feel for some of those outliers. Through this motion parallax, I can get a better sense as to the height of the bars or pass my cursor over them to understand the exact value. But I can definitely see concentration in this area. One of the other things I'd like to do is switch some of the themes around, just kind of vary my style a little bit, give a different perspective on stuff. Ultimately, though, I want to understand why is there this spike, because as an organization, I want to spend my limited marketing dollars as best as I can so that I can target those people that are of greatest value to my organization. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this particular area and try to better understand why this might be spiking in this particular spot. What I'm going to do is turn on my aerial view of that and zoom right down to the waterfront. So for those of you who are familiar with Seattle, we've got a nice little waterfront area with the Seattle Aquarium, and you can see the rooftops of these various buildings and see the street names. And as it turns out, this particular area is the main ticket office where they are selling the tickets. They offered both online sales and on-premise sales, but for whatever reason, they decided to shut down the online sales 2 weeks prior to the opening of the exhibit, which then forced people to go to the main ticket office to buy their ticket, and that produced huge long lines. People are around the corners of the building and stuff like that. So that's why we're probably seeing the spike, but I can further confirm that by turning on the ticket type. Oops, not that one, sorry. Sale type. So I can confirm right off the bat online versus on-site sales, and this big green portion does confirm that in fact these were on-site sales. So just tucking that away for future events, I would probably want to keep my online ticket sales open for a longer period of time, and that would improve my customer satisfaction ultimately for my overall goal of converting non-members to members and on to donors. All right, so that's a kind of an interesting insight. Let me go ahead and back up a little bit and label this particular data point. So put main ticket office. This is a 3D label, so as I pass my mouse over it, it lights up that spot, but as I pan around, it always faces forward, so you can always read that label. Okay. I'm going to take another snapshot of this scene, so it builds up the story that I'm trying to ultimately convey to other people in my organization. All right, that's all fine and well. Let me back out a little bit here, and I want to look at a different aspect of my data, which involves the actual members versus non-members. I'm going to turn off ticket sales and turn on member, non-member. And I'm going to change my theme such that it doesn't compete with the overall background. And I'm looking for areas now that have a good concentration of non-members as well as members, because members help pull through the non-members for making them future participants in that organization. So I can see there's a few areas. In fact, let's turn on the labels once again. You can see we've got Bainbridge here, which has a pretty good concentration of member and non-member, as well as Mercer Island. So let's zoom in on that a little bit, and I can actually read off the values for those. So pretty good distribution there. From a marketing perspective, those would be reasonable areas to target with limited marketing dollars. Because they're both islands, they probably have similar traits involved. People tend to take ferries and things like that, or they may have similar commute paths and things where I can leverage that type of campaign. So let's go ahead and back up a little bit here, take another snapshot. Another thing that is really powerful about this type of analysis is I can begin to overlay additional types of data, such as demographics, age, interests, population densities, things like that. So I can begin to correlate, hey, is this an interesting area or not? So with respect to the ticket sales, one thing I want to make sure is, like, does this island have enough people on it to even warrant my effort of targeting them with my marketing campaign? So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet here, and I already have a tab for population densities in the Seattle area. So let's go ahead and insert that into my GeoFlow. And what I can do now is turn on the zip code, so I'll go ahead and map that. And I'll go ahead and geocode those various areas. It's sometimes a little hard to see. These are the pink areas on top of those various points. And then I'll turn on population density. Okay, so that puts those in. Now you can see that there's a bit of occlusion taking place because it's in the same exact place as the other things. But I can change the visualization type to something different so there isn't as much occlusion. So let's in this case go with a heat map. Now there's still occlusion going on, but I go to my layer menu, manager, and turn off layer 1 so that I can more easily see the various regions and their populations. Okay? And what I can tell fairly quickly is there's not a strong correlation between population density and the number of ticket sales, with the exception of the downtown area of Seattle. So for example, in the outer lying areas, such as in this spot, there's a high concentration of people, but not very much ticket sales. As far as Bainbridge goes and Mercer Island, they've got respectable population sizes, so it seems reasonable to spend my marketing dollars in those areas to try to beef up the people involved in that. So let's go ahead and take another snapshot of this. All right. Okay, and let me turn on layer 1. What I'd like to do now is take a look at temporal patterns in my data. This is another one of the strengths of GeoFlow, in that we can handle temporal data very fluidly. So in this particular case, I'm going to turn off layer 2. We're just going to take a look at the downtown area. I'm going to turn on the date by which the tickets were sold. Sale date. And now I can take a look at when the tickets actually were sold to customers. Don't worry about the jumping around right here, it's just repeating the screen. One thing I forgot to mention is, this is in beta form. Basically, we are halfway through the product development process, so if there are a few glitches like that, it's just part of the natural development process. Okay, let's go ahead and play our data over time, and we can see when tickets are actually getting purchased. Time goes on. Again, this is over a 3-month period of time, starting in early August, going to the end of October. You see there's not very much activity happening in the first 2 months. It starts to pick up at the beginning of October, and then it really accelerates toward the mid to latter part of the month of October. And I can scrub back over this just to kind of quickly see where that spike really takes place. So ultimately what this tells me is people waited to the very end to buy their tickets. So again, from a marketing standpoint, I might choose to have campaigns happening earlier in the process, getting people out there buying tickets sooner, maybe having higher discounts and stuff like that, and tapering off towards the end. So I was able to capture quite a few insights along my journey of this analysis. And right now we're kind of in an exploratory phase. We will be providing additional capabilities that target more the analytics side. So as an example, as I was going through this, most of this was visual inspection, kind of seeing the height of the bars, using motion parallax to get a better sense as to the difference in the bars. In terms of the analytics side, we allow you to actually create a 2D bar chart of these various regions, so I can do more of a direct comparison of bar heights, and then you can actually then apply statistics and things of that nature. All right, so I've done my analysis here. What I'd like to do now is share this analysis with other people in my organization. Along the way, I've added a title for my main ticket office. I also have the ability to add titles for other regions, such as the Bainbridge opportunity here. So let's go ahead and add a text box. Bainbridge, and then I have some text already written up. And so this is a little bit different type of label. It basically floats over the map and allows you to put a larger amount of information that clarifies the particular intent of this visualization. So let's go ahead and save that as part of the tour. Okay, so I've got various parts of my tour, and I'm going to go ahead and play it back so you can see how this looks. So I've got the initial opening scene where it shows the concentration of activity in Seattle, shows the various concentrations. I switch over to my aerial view to understand the spike in activity that took place. I found that Bainbridge was an interesting opportunity to focus some of our energy. I pan back out to make sure that the population densities are appropriate for the use. And that's basically the synopsis of my analysis. Now that I've done the analysis, I package this up, I can then send it to other people in my organization.